rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Sure. Mayor Clure.
Here.
Councilman Redmond.
Here.
Councilman Stackfleth.
Here.
Councilman Collings, not here. Councilman Stearns?
Here.
All right.
Thank you. And we will have a special presentation from Siskiyou Economic Development Council. Maybe. No?
Do you guys have Joe Dieguez in the waiting room? Okay. All right. Well, onward.
Onward. All right, we'll move on to public comment. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to something not on the agenda, please come on up. And anyone online?
Am I speaking anything that's on the consent agenda?
Hi, Raven, go ahead.
I'm unable to unmute her.
Raven, we can't hear you. Please be sure to
Oh, there
unmute
we
yourself.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I missed the last city council meeting, but I wanted to take a minute and thank the local fire department, Mount Shasta PD, who were sitting at the top of our street keeping watch for us overnight. It allowed us to sleep a little bit better, you know. But yeah, I want to thank Kathy and the rest of the folks there, because it felt good to have somebody else there keeping an eye. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Raven. Anyone else online wish to speak?
No.
Okay, no one from the audience. We will close public comment, move on to council and staff comments. Todd?
Okay, so a couple things. First off, our previous...
Yeah, we're having some audio. We can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
A little better, yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to pass on the news that our previous city manager, Bruce Pope, passed away last day of August, and wanted to take a moment of silence in his honor. Okay. So, a couple things. Switching gears, we were just awarded $140,000 in Caltrans planning grants to do active transportation planning and upgrades to Lake Street. That we can then fold into the Lake Street.
Sorry, we can't hear you. We need to get this front speaker working.
Yeah, we can hear him, but it's still speaking.
If we could hear better, we could hear better if it's louder.
Okay, so we were awarded just under $140,000 for Lake Street active transportation improvements, and that'll get folded into the reconstruction. That includes narrowing of the travel lanes on Lake Street, which will slow traffic, which is one of the issues that we have constant complaints about. Hopefully that will reduce PED and vehicle collisions. And there we go. And it will involve adding new ADA ramps, bike lanes, other improvements as well, potentially a mid-block crosswalk. And the State Water Resources Control Board just awarded us $8.3 million for new water line improvements. For Orem Street, 7,200 linear feet of steel pipe will be replaced with PVC, new fire hydrants, and new water meters. And North Mount Shasta Boulevard, 950 linear feet, again, replacing the old steel pipes, new meters and hydrants. Lake Street, 900 linear feet of new PVC pipe and new meters. And finally, South Mount Shasta Boulevard, 1,435 linear feet, as well as new water meters. So that's good news. Finally, we've been talking about the drainage impact fee for a while. We're going to have the actual draft report in this week for us to review, and we'll go into the methodology, and it's pretty, it's pretty substantial, and it's very, very thorough, and it will help set us up for the election. And as you may recall, with the amendment to their contract, they're going to be helping to get out the word for that election in March for that impact fee to be passed. Right now, residents are paying $1 a month, and it will, we're trying to keep costs down. We have grant applications out there totaling $1.5 million for drainage projects that we hope were awarded. The fee that we're looking at is $21 a month right at this moment. If we were awarded those grants, that will come down a little bit. So we're gearing up towards the March election, and we've got the TUT increase, the hotel tax increase on the November election, raising TUT hotel tax from 10% to 12%, and I've done my best to get out to the word to the chamber and other folks to make sure that they beat the drum if they're in support of it. And we really need to see what we can do to ramp up that support, or it's going to be a tough one to pass. So that's what I've got.
Thank you. Any other staff updates? Council?
I would just like to acknowledge Bruce Pope's positive impact on Mount Shasta. He continued a infrastructure improvement trend that had started prior to him, and he actually, with a little bit of prodding by someone, I forgot who that guy is, but anyhow, somebody pushed him a little bit after we had a stall on the sewage treatment plant, and through diligence on his part, he made that project happen, and therefore, long-term, Mount Shasta will be legal with respect to what we're doing with our sanitary sewage situation. On top of that, as part of that, he helped, he made sure that the interceptor line going down to it was rebuilt too. So that's just one major project that he accomplished. There were other ones of a lesser degree dollar-wise, but also very important. And he was very experienced as a city manager in California, and he used that experience to help us move forward. And God bless him. May he rest in peace.
Thanks, John. Any other council comments? Nope. All right, moving on to committee updates. Anything, Todd?
So the DIAC committee met. I had a competing meeting, and so wasn't able to attend. From what I gathered from updates after the fact, the Flower of Life statue, they're trying to still figure out the pedestal for that. Everything is moving forward. They're on track to wrap, 2 different designs on power boxes around the city, and they've got designs for 2 additional that they're going to produce, and we're going to put in front of Pac Power. And they're doing great. They're really making a huge impact, and everybody on that that group is just tremendous.
Great. All right, moving on to agenda item number 7, consent agenda. The city manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda or added hereto shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading thereof is hereby waived. A, approval of minutes, August 28, 2023, regular meeting. B, approval of disbursements, accounts payable, $955,209.15, total gross payroll and taxes for period ending 9/7/23. C, second reading of CCO-23-09, amending Chapter 10.44 restricted parking, eliminating 2-hour parking in specific locations. And D, Police Department monthly report, August 2023.
Madam Mayor, I request that item 7C be removed from consent agenda for purpose of discussion.
It's automatic, right? With that removal, I'll move to approve consent agenda items A, B, and D.
Oh,
By
second
title.
that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Do we now hear 7C? Okay. So now we will hear the second reading of CCO-23-09, amending Chapter 10.44 restricted parking, eliminating 2-hour parking in specific locations as a standalone item. Any questions before we move to public comment? Okay. Go ahead.
Tim, would you like to tell us why you removed this?
Yes, I requested that 7C be removed for discussion because I think there is discussion on 7C. I see some people in the audience who may be interested in this matter and should have an opportunity for public comment.
Okay.
And then we can discuss it amongst ourselves.
Okay. We will open up to public comment. Come on up.
And do you want this made part of the record?
So I'm Nancy Jandro. Main Event and Haircuts came to the council for help with a common citywide civil rights issue. We always presented our common citywide civil rights issue in a polite and professional manner. Instead of helping, the council made a decision which is prejudiced against our civil rights that should protect us from unfair treatment and discrimination, and also disregards what decision should have been made to protect the rights supporting many other local businesses. This decision was possibly prejudiced by hearsay conversation by friends over a drink at a local bar. This decision was possibly prejudiced by an unscientific survey disregarding over 72 signatures, which you have copies of, from local citizens in dispute of this unscientific survey. Did this unscientific survey take into consideration how far away the nearest handicap parking space is? This decision was possibly prejudiced by procedural irregularities based on misinformation, and sadly not wanting to deal with complaints arising from a different decision. This decision was possibly prejudiced by ignoring or rejecting pleas to support many local businesses. Throughout the long process of watching and hearing council meetings for months, Main Events and Haircuts were disillusioned by the lack of help and support from the majority of the city council. Mount Shasta is a small city. What affects one usually affects many more. We hoped that our city council would have had compassion and been supportive of our small city and business owners. What we have experienced is exact opposite. So I don't think I have to go into detail that we are very upset with the removal of the 2-hour parking on the north side of Castle Street between Chestnut and the First Alley. It is going to impact the businesses. It will now allow motorhomes to park there all day long. And when one person may drive by 10 minutes later, what was not busy, when one person drove by 10 minutes later, the whole street could be filled up. So I just would hope that you would take into consideration what's best for the businesses of downtown business district. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Anyone online?
No.
All right, we will close public comment, bring it back to council for discussion.
At the last meeting, I addressed public policy considerations and got pretty much blank views or blank stares or no stares at all when we were discussing that from other council members. So I'd like to address what's the real issue here. In my opinion, the issue is not a need for more parking spaces or less parking spaces. The real issue is two businesses came before us repeatedly seeking our assistance with a problem that they perceived of a neighboring business owner and his employee parking at two of the spots in front of their businesses. Not for a half hour, not for a day, or not for an hour, not for 2 hours, but all day. And to resolve the conflict, I think there was frankly a knee-jerk and wrong proposal to solve the problem of these women coming before us to simply say, let's get rid of the limited time parking so that the neighbor essentially can park there as much as he wants all day, every day. His employee can park there all day, every day, and the problem is solved for the neighboring business owner, but does nothing for the businesses that have the parking in front of them and nothing for the customers of the businesses. And it doesn't promote public policy. Well, maybe it's because one of the people drinks at a particular person's bar or shares drinks with a member of the council, or that a council member provides services to one business and not to two other businesses. But if our children were to ask us the way to solve a problem, I think any of us on this council would be ashamed to say, here's how we solve the problem. We fixed the problem in favor of this neighbor who wants to park in front of these people's businesses all day long. It didn't do anything for the businesses. We'd be ashamed to tell our parents or other family members, this is how we dealt with the problem. And so we are supposed to be setting an example and be leaders when we sit at this council. And to say we solved the problem because those ladies who came before us were problem makers, they created problems for us, taking up our time about these two parking spots that were limited parking, we'll just eliminate the parking, the limited parking. They're not really the problem makers. And this is the wrong approach. So it's not a matter of not enforcing 2-hour parking anywhere in the city. It's not an issue of whether there's Supreme Court cases one way or the other, or appellate court cases one way or the other.
I disagree. It is an issue of not enforcing.
Let me
It is an
finish.
issue.
I'm willing
and-
to give you your time as long as you don't interrupt mine.
Go ahead.
If it were an issue of eliminating 2-hour parking, we could do that throughout the entire city. That would be public policy, just eliminate. But this proposed ordinance eliminates 2 parking spots in a specific place in front of 2 businesses that are disadvantaged because a neighboring business owner and his employee keep parking in front of their 2 businesses all day long. I'm sure that if your children presented an issue, something like this to you, you just would not act the same way. Or if your parents asked you, how did you deal with this issue publicly? You'd probably be reluctant or ashamed to tell them how you did it. And I think if we vote on this and pass it, if it's passed,
Tim, you need to wrap this up.
I understand, I am doing that. If this is passed, I think those who vote in favor of it are going to feel a bit of shame for years to come, because it's not the right way to deal with the problem or the issue. Thank you.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so the issue is enforcement. We do not enforce the parking code with respect to 2 hours or 4 hours. We're not going to, according to the person in charge of that. So my one compromise was to say, no 2-hour parking, maybe you only need 1 hour parking from point X to the corner, and for some reason that was disregarded, possibly by staff. Then they'd have 2 to 3, maybe 4 spots or 8 there. Thought that was a pretty good compromise, but apparently that's not an option. I'm with you on the idea of getting rid of entirely the idea of limited parking if we're not going to, especially if we're not going to enforce it. It's just a, almost a hypocritical program, and then leave it up to employers to make their employees park somewhere else in the back, one of those public parking lots and so forth. But as far as feeling shame and so, I'm not sure why you're bringing that up. There's a conflict about parking. This is the simplest way to solve it, sadly. And there are 8 parking spots there. The people at Crave, I believe, use 2 to 3. That leaves 5 or 6 spots usually open for businesses that are not open all the time. Now Crave is not going to be open on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I don't see a lot of problem with this. I do agree with you on the consistency aspect of the policy change. But maybe we need to go to city attorney to see if there's some legal liabilities possible for making this move. What do you think, city manager?
There are no liability issues with removing spaces. That's a council function, and it says so in the municipal code. This gets down to, say we were going to remove 2-hour parking around the city. We could do that. Having the parallel parking spaces where we do, even if we don't enforce, that does encourage people to move on. But we do have the problem in front of certain businesses with employees parking there. And, the bottom line, well, I sympathize with the business. this sounds like it's a long-running feud with a neighbor who is not great. And I think the way to really address this is through a restraining order where you have some power to keep these people out of your lives. But in terms of deciding whether or not you want to remove parking citywide, that's certainly a council decision. Removing a few spaces is within council's purview, and it's written into the municipal code that it is. There is no legal jeopardy that we're in by taking any of these actions. So it really comes down to where does council stand on this?
I would like to say something. This is now, I think, like the 5th meeting or so that this has been brought up, and I agree that this is a neighborhood dispute, and the 3 of us have voted this way because we do feel it is an enforcement issue. I have had my character attacked from you, Councilmember Stearns, via email on this issue. You keep bringing this up, and now you're bringing up the fact that we should feel ashamed with our decision while insinuating that a fellow council member is having ulterior motives with his decision. It is you who should be ashamed of the way that you are bringing this to us. I am sick of hearing about it, quite frankly. Do we have a motion?
Is there any entertaining, first of all, is it possible just to put a parking sign at the 3rd spot, say from here to the corner? That is done in other cities, I've seen them.
Are you asking, for example, 2-hour parking
From here to the corner?
From here, extending for 75 feet? Sure, they had that kind of language. In fact, that was section M that was also taken out on Old McLeod, was 75 feet from Ream on Old McLeod. So it has a specific distance.
Right.
So the council wants to measure out how many 2 spots would be for 2-hour parking. We can measure that and come back and put 2 spots, 3 spots, whatever council directs.
Right. Thoughts, councilors? Not interested? Not interested. Okay. Interested?
I think that we should do something that doesn't disadvantage these 2 particular businesses in order to facilitate the neighboring difficult business owner and his employee to continue to harass these businesses or disadvantage them by parking there as long as possible.
With respect to the motorhome issue and like the trailers that will take up 2 spots, those are items that they can call the police department and say that there is a vehicle taking up more than 1 spot, and they will handle it. Removing the 2-hour parking does not wave a sign that says every motorhome should park here. That's the part that I'm not understanding.
Well, I'm not worried about that either. If there's in a angled parking, if the vehicle extends substantially beyond the parking edge into the street, is that problematic to the point of removal of the vehicle?
Yes, we have a 22-foot maximum length for parking in downtown, subject to tow. Can't park an angle. You can't park across angled parking. You can't park trailers across angled parking. It has to be able to fit in the spots. So if that's there, then we go get them.
I'm going to take Councilmember up on the idea of having a discussion of eliminating 2-hour parking throughout the city. Perhaps we can suspend action on this particular ordinance tonight and propose that alternative. Would Councilmember Stackfluff feel positively towards taking that alternative action?
I think it might be logically appropriate to look at that as a possibility due to the enforcement issue, sure. I mean, we're simply not enforcing parking. Do we have any parking tickets coming across anyone's desk? Parking violation ticket, yeah. I've seen people towed for parking in front of driveways and such, and there's that. But we do have this issue at hand to make a decision on at this point. Like I said, I live there, and it's rarely an impacted stretch of parking spaces, meaning sold out. It's very rare. So, as a separate issue, yeah, possibly. So that'd be for a later date.
So, and if that's where council wants to go in terms of a consideration, we can. I think the thing to keep in mind is that since we aren't enforcing, and if we were to do away with 2-hour parking, does that mean that we then need to scarify and remove the parking spaces? Because if we take down signs, no parking signs, and we then need to remove the lines for parking, the folks that are visiting from out of town that see the no parking signs, whether or not we're enforcing, it does tend to force more circulation because they don't know we're not enforcing, and to allow more folks access to businesses. Just something to keep in mind. I'll take direction any way you guys want to take it.
Councilmember Stearns had also emailed the city manager and I regarding this, and my advice was to wait a bit until we figure out what the ad hoc committee is doing with possible one-way streets and that kind of thing, because a lot of things may be changing in the near future anyway.
And an alternative reason to consider that citywide policy now is so that we can take it into consideration when we do look at the one-way couplet. So I would move to table further action on item 7C and to take up the alternative public policy citywide approach.
Is there a motion for the second reading?
Do we know what the number of this is?
23-09.
09? All right. So I'll move to approve city ordinance number CCO-23-09, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta amending section 10.44.080 of the Mount Shasta Municipal Code by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Vote passes 3-1. All right, moving on to agenda item number 8, Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District EIFD Resolution of Intention, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta declaring its intention to establish an enhanced infrastructure finance district. Todd.
Can we unmute Joe Dieguez? So I'll start. Well, looks like they have. Okay, so essentially what we're here, we've been talking about this for a while, about forming an enhanced infrastructure finance district and potentially partnering with the county. And so what we're here to do is pass a resolution declaring the city's intention to establish a Mount Shasta Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District and a public financing authority. and to approve the organization of a public financing authority board, which consists of 3 council members, 2 members of the public, and if the county participates, the public financing board would consist of 2 council members, 1 county supervisor, 1 member of the public appointed by council, and there would be 1 member of public appointed by the Board of Supervisors. Then finally, what we're here to discuss passing is find that the adoption of the resolution of intention and establishment of a public financing authority are exempt from CEQA. Now, just to go into a little bit of history about this, we originally, with the hard work of the Siskiyou Economic Development Council, was able to procure an Economic Development Administration grant to pull Cosmon on to study the viability of forming an enhanced infrastructure finance district, to look at the types of businesses that would tend to thrive here where we have demand, and see about, through this EIFD formation, if we could catalyze private sector development. And that's it. So we've been working with Cosmont. They've been great partners. I presented to the Board of Supervisors back in June or July to just gauge their temperature on whether or not they would consider partnering with us. If they partner with us, the city and the county backstopping their general fund would allow us to produce enough excess tax increment that we might be able to get infrastructure into some of the sites that have remained undeveloped for 20 plus years. And we were met initially with some reluctance, but the Board of Supervisors did vote to examine this further. We then went back, Joe Dieguez, Siskiyou Economic Development Council, and myself, and presented to the Board of Supervisors our proposal to partner, and on a 4-to-1 vote, they agreed that we should continue down this road of exploration, and so we're here on that first step of that journey. So that's why we're here in a nutshell, and Joe is with us. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Todd, and good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I would just add a few clarified comments. I apologize if they are already obvious or were covered in prior conversations. This is a district that does not generate a new tax for anybody. So it's very important. It's not a new tax. This is a way of the city setting aside, somewhat like a retirement account, some portion of future property tax within a very specific boundary. Reason why any city would think about doing that is because you could achieve a match, like an employer matching an employee's retirement account allocation. The county could be matching your allocation. So it's a mechanism to bring in other dollars that you would not otherwise see. That is one reason why we see cities and counties doing this sort of thing. Another reason is that it gives you currency with this district, currency to approach the private sector in a meaningful way that may make them much more likely to invest their own private sector dollars in real estate development, such as on the landing. So we've been very surgical, very precise in how the boundaries were drawn, such that there's a lot to gain and not much to lose, meaning the existing assessed property value in these areas is minimal or zero, whereas what could be catalyzed in terms of private sector development can be quite substantial. And then further, other than attracting other dollars and in catalyzing private sector investment, the third reason why we see many cities and counties do this is because there are several grants at both the state and federal level which elevate applications from cities and counties that do these so that you are more likely to attract grant dollars. So sort of another point along the lines of bringing in other dollars that you otherwise might not have access to. So the action tonight, as the city manager said, it's non-binding. It is very important, though. It is essentially moving the ball forward and would enable us to return to the county and say, city council has taken this step. If you'd like to continue down this road, we would like you to do so, and we'd like to convene this body, this public financing authority that the city manager outlined, that would be comprised of members of both the city council and county board of supervisors, to actually get this ball rolling. And then we would come back to you, the city council, the county board separately, and then separately this new hybrid entity, the public financing authority, with a fleshed out plan with even greater specificity. What are you going to do? How many dollars? Over what time horizon? What are the impacts on my general fund? All of that would have to come back to you for approval. The action today is about moving the ball forward. Thank you. I'll obviously remain for questions.
And if I could add one comment to this. You know, a lot of people haven't heard of an enhanced infrastructure finance district. It is essentially California's pared down version, basically limiting increment that you can reap from a district. But tax increment finance is a very old tool that's used in many states to catalyze new economic development and spur private sector development, and it's not magic. It works, and I've seen it work in many different places. And another way to think about this, it helps me think about it this way, is that with a district like this, tax increment finance, whether you call it TIF or whether you call it an EIFD, it's basically saying that once you form a district in a certain year, any additional tax revenue, whether it's 100% or 50%, instead of that money coming into the city, it's plowed back into the district to invest to further catalyze private sector development.
Thank you. Questions?
Joe? Is his name Joe? So Joe or Todd, so it's a huge district with respect to the general size of Mount Shasta, 466 acres. I'm very happy with that. I only wish you could also include north of Spring Hill, but I think it's a good start with respect to getting the county on board. My understanding, I tried to do more reading on the EIFD details before coming here, and the discontinuity aspects of this plan are legal. My only question I couldn't have answered is, can the beneficiaries of the TIF be outside of the district? I believe the answer to that is no. So in other words, if you wanted to take the TIF funds, monies, and apply them to this rec district, let's say it's really successful, right? And you more than handle the infrastructure improvements to get private investment moving. And some of the private investment is really high value, right? Telecommunications center, so forth. And it's a big investment on the private sector entity and so forth, so they pay a lot of property tax on that. I'm unsure if you could take what would be really surplus funds and then plow them into something like the rec district, improve the park district if it's not part of the EIFD district to begin with. And I don't know that answer.
So Joe's the expert on this. I'll let him answer that.
Yeah.
It depends on what what you're investing in. Like fire hardening is something that you can do outside the district, but I'll let Joe answer the rest of this.
Thank you. Yes, the answer is yes. You could fund, these districts are unique compared to other districts. In this case, you are actually allowed to pay for improvements that are outside the district boundary. The caveat is that there needs to be at least a partial benefit to the properties within the boundary. Examples that we come across at times, a water treatment facility that may be outside the boundary, but that treats the water for properties within the boundary, as well as other properties. So that's the caveat. Yes, as long as there's a benefit, at least partially, to the properties within the boundary.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Okay, well, one more question. Yeah. So can we alter the boundaries, in this case would be an expansion, after the district starts? Is that allowable?
I can take this one, City Manager. So really, the answer is no. With the passage of this action tonight, the resolution of intention, we would say this is your last opportunity to increase the boundaries. They may shrink after this action, but they may not grow. And the reason is because there is some public noticing that we'll need to be doing. And basically, you want to make sure you get everyone in from the beginning as far as public noticing goes. So now is the time to grow, not after today.
Well, given how long it took to get here, and given the size, I'll let this ride, so to speak.
Joe and Todd, when we went to present this to the Board of Supervisors, they had a number of concerns about how we would approach this and making sure that the funding would be sufficient. Do you believe that the intention here answers a lot of those concerns? Will they be receptive to what we bring to them with this?
Well, there are many ways to skin the cat. I mean, and it depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. We have, as we've talked about before, we've got a gentleman who would like to take the landing in its entirety. With the passage of this, will we have enough money to put infrastructure into that site based on the increment we reap over time, the long-term or the short-term time horizon? Probably not, but there are things that we can do. We could, create a development agreement. We could, in that, the developer could pay for certain things with the expectation that these are the outcomes that the city would like to see, and pay back that owner over time with the increment that comes in. But there are other things that Joe and I have discussed too. It just really depends on what it is we're trying to accomplish and on what site.
Mayor and Todd? Oh, I apologize.
Yes,
Mayor.
please.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I would agree absolutely with City Manager's response. And I would add, I do feel like they would be encouraged. The most actionable input that we received from them, Supervisor Cobseth, as an example, asked us to consider adding in the so-called Del Valley property across from CHP, just north of Lake. And we just went ahead and did that. We just went ahead, we mapped it, we included those specific parcels. And so comments like that, the answer is yes. We can come back to them and say, we heard you and we've incorporated your feedback.
Excellent. And outside of adopting this declaration of intention, you also wish to designate the 2 council members as part of the committee. Is that correct? Is that happening tonight as well?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, we will open up to public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this matter? Please come on up. Anyone online?
No one.
Okay, close public comment, back to council for discussion.
Well, as Mayor Pro Tem Stackfluff pointed out, this has been a long time in coming. It's been, I want to say, 6 or 7 or 8 years.
7 years at least.
I'm glad to see we've got a resolution here, and I'm supportive of it.
All right, ditto to that. I would have to say this was my main objective when I entered the city council back in 2016, thinking that, the idea, I was introduced to the EIFD by the city manager of Weed at the time, and it's SB 628, I believe, is what this created this. And I looked at it as redevelopment light, but also probably the only real opportunity for the city to attract private investment, substantial private investment. We seem to be getting people wanting to open up restaurants in existing buildings. That's great. But this is the best hope to attract private investment for all these vacant lands. And here we are. So, onward.
And if I can add that even if we move this along as quickly and everything moves seamlessly and the county plays and wants to be part of this, it's probably at least a year before this is formed, but we're still doing this at a time where we have a nexus with, the giant infrastructure bill that, as Joe mentioned, makes you eligible for certain infrastructure grants. And if we get this formation in place, there also is a better chance that we will be awarded funding because we have this district formed.
Okay, so, city manager, there's a resolution here. I believe we're up to 20,
23-10, I believe. Oh, no,
that's...
never mind.
That's,
That's CCO.
yeah.
Let's look at the minutes.
Will one motion for the one resolution be enough? Because I get the impression that there needs to be several motions, but is that true?
It is. It's
Okay.
the 3 items at the front of the staff report.
Right.
Which, of course,
26?
2023-26.
Okay.
And it's Councilmember Stackfluff making a motion to adopt resolution,
Yeah, hold on.
because we need to take those one at a time.
Yeah, all the whereases need to be spelled out.
Yeah, 26. All right, so we'll start with the main resolution on page, well, it doesn't have a number. Move to approve resolution CCR-23-26. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta declaring its intention to establish the Mount Shasta Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District to finance the construction, repair, acquisition, and/or maintenance of capital improvements and facilities, including acquisition and/or remediation of land for such improvements and facilities, establishing a public financing authority, and authorizing certain other actions related thereto.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 4-0. Then I think you do each of,
So, do we need more motions for particulars?
each whereas.
Well, yeah. No, that was an all-encompassing
Okay.
title. It included the creation of the district, the establishment of the Public Financing Authority, and then other items. Question is there more to move for?
other
or-
than that this is exempt from, it's exempt from CEQA.
So, should I redo this and read through every whereas? Let's take the time to read through this?
Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Just so we cover our bases.
All right, move to approve Resolution CCR-23-26, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta declaring its intention to establish the Mount Shasta Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District to finance the construction, repair, acquisition, and/or maintenance of capital improvements and facilities, including the acquisition and/or remediation of land for such improvements and facilities, establishing a public financing authority, and authorizing certain other actions related thereto. Whereas SB 628, effective as of January 1st, 2015, allows a city or county to create a separate government entity known as an Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, EIFD, within a defined area to finance certain infrastructure projects with community-wide benefits. And whereas pursuant to Chapter 2.99 of Part 1 of Division 2 of Title 5 of the California Government Code, commencing with Section 5339A.50, the EIFD law, the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta Council is authorized to initiate the process to establish an EIFD. Whereas EIFDs are financed through the tax increment generated from the growth in property taxes collected from within a designated district boundary, there are no new taxes or impacts to the property owner within an established EIFD. And whereas EIFD tax increment may be used to pay for a variety of public functions and other projects authorized by the EIFD law within the established EIFD boundaries or outside of the established EIFD boundaries. If there is a tangible connection to the work of the EIFD, including but not limited to infrastructure such as roads, utilities, streetscapes, parks, and public recreation, or other community facilities, funding may also be used to facilitate public-private activities by enticing development with infrastructure development and expansion, including new industrial manufacturing facility construction and repair, and brownfields remediation. Affordable housing, including affordable senior housing, is also an eligible activity. And whereas the city, supported by the Siskiyou County Economic Development Council, SEDC, was awarded a grant from the United States Economic Development Administration, EDA, for EIFD feasibility study technical advisory services. The city then retained Cosmont and Associates, Inc., DBA Cosmont Companies, through a competitive procurement process as a consultant to provide the necessary technical analysis and advisory. And whereas on September 12, 2022, City Council expressed preliminary interest and direction for city staff during a City Council meeting to move forward with initial EIFD formation activities, including discussion with the County of Siskiyou regarding potential partnership in the EIFD, and whereas the prerequisites set forth in Government Code Section 53398.54 have been complied with prior to the city initiating the creation of or participating in the governance of the EIFD, and the city will provide the required certification to the California Department of Finance, DOF, in accordance with the EIFD law. And whereas the proposed boundaries of this Mount Shasta EIFD are identified on Exhibit A, entitled Proposed Mount Shasta EIFD Boundary, a copy which is on file in the office of the city clerk. And whereas the EIFD will be governed by a public financing authority, PFA, board, which will be responsible for implementing the infrastructure financing plan for the EIFD, the IFP, and the PFA is required to be established by the City Council at the same time that the Council adopts its intention to form the proposed EIFD. And whereas this action is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, as an action solely related to financing and is not in and of itself a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15378, since it does not result in a physical change in the environment because the city has not committed itself to fund any specific projects through the EIFD. However, future actions such as the funding and or approval of infrastructure improvements using funding from the EIFD will be subject to environmental review in accordance with CEQA. Now, therefore, the Mount Shasta City Council does hereby find, determine, conclude, and resolve as follows. Section 1, the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta proposes and intends to cause the establishment of an EIFD under the provision of the EIFD law. Section 2, the name proposed for the EIFD shall be the Mount Shasta Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. Section 3, the proposed boundaries of the EIFD are as shown on Exhibit A attached here 2, which are preliminarily approved and on file in the office of the city clerk and incorporated herein by reference. Section 4, the types of public facilities and development proposed to be financed or assisted by the EIFD pursuant to the EIFD law are those listed in Exhibit B, attached here 2, and incorporated herein by reference. Section 5, the City Council hereby finds that the EIFD is necessary for the area within the boundaries of the EIFD and the city. City Council's stated goals for the EIFD are to create a means by which to assist in the provision of public facilities or other specified projects of community-wide significance that provide significant benefits to promote economic development of and enhance quality of life within the boundaries of the EIFD or the surrounding community. Section 6, the City Council hereby declares that pursuant to the EIFD law and if approved by resolution pursuant to Government Code Section 53398.68, incremental property tax revenue from the City of Mount Shasta and some or all other affected taxing entities within the EIFD may be used to finance the activity described in Section 4 and listed on Exhibit B. The incremental property tax financing will be described in an IFP to be prepared for approval by the PFA, the City Council, and the legislative bodies of all participating taxing entities under EIFD law. Section 7, the City or County of Siskiyou may allocate tax revenues derived from the local sales and use taxes imposed pursuant to the Bradley-Burns Uniform Local Sales and Use Tax Law, Part 1.5, commencing with Section 7200 and Division 2 of the Revenue and Taxation Code, or transaction and use taxes imposed in accordance with the Transaction and Use Tax Law, Part 1.6, commencing with Section 7251 of Division 2 of the Revenue and Tax Code, to the IFD pursuant to Government Code Section 53398.75.5, if applicable. City Council does not intend to contribute sales and use taxes or transactions and use taxes to the EIFD. Section 8, the City Council hereby establishes the public financing authority of the Mount Shasta Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District to serve as a governing board of the EIFD. The PFA membership shall be comprised initially of 3 members of the City Council appointed by City Council and 2 public members selected by the City Council. Members shall serve at the pleasure of the City Council, as the case may be, and shall serve until their successor assumes office. B, the City Council further declares that pursuant to Government Code Section 53398.51.1, should another taxing entity agree to participate as a taxing entity, that PFA membership shall be modified in accordance with Government Code Section 53398.51.1. For example, if the County of Siskiyou County agrees to participate as a taxing entity and the participating taxing entities consist of the city and the county, then the PFA membership shall be modified to be 2 members of the City Council, 1 member of the County Board of Supervisors, and 2 public members jointly selected by the City Council and the Board of Supervisors. Members shall serve at the pleasure of their respective appointing legislative bodies and shall serve until their successor assumes office. C, the legislative body of each participating taxing entity may appoint 1 of its members to be an alternate member of the PFA board who may serve and vote in place of a member who is absent or disqualifies themselves from participating in a meeting of the PFA. D, the members are subject to compliance with the EIFD law and all applicable ethics laws, including Article 2.4, commencing with Section 53234 of Chapter 2 of the Government Code. E, the City Council and the governing bodies of other participating entities shall comply with Government Section 54974. Section 8, the City Council hereby sets the time and place for a public hearing of the PFA, the proposed EIFD and IFP, to be held on February 12th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard at City Hall Council Chambers, City Park, Upper Lodge, 1315 Nixon Road, Mount Shasta, California. Section 9, pursuant to Government Code Section 53398.60, the City Clerk is hereby directed to mail a copy of this resolution to the PFA and each owner of land as defined in the EIFD law, or alternatively with respect to the owners of land, may mail a single-page notice of intention identified in Government Code Section 53398.60B within the EIFD and to each affected taxing entity as defined in the EIFD law. In addition, the City Clerk is hereby directed to cause notice of the public hearing to be published not less than once a week for 4 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation published in the city. The notice shall state that the EIFD will be used to finance public works, briefly describes the facilities, briefly describe the proposed financial arrangements, including the proposed commitment of incremental tax revenue, describe the boundaries of the proposed EIFD, and state the day, hour, and place when and where any persons having objections to the proposed EIFP or the regularity of any of the prior proceedings may appear before the PFA and object to the adoption of the proposed IFP. Section 10, as the city did not have a redevelopment agency, EIFD formation prerequisites involving a successor agency finding of completion from the DOF do not apply. Section 11, as the city did not have a redevelopment agency, EIFD prerequisites involving certification of the DOF and to the PFA that no former redevelopment redevelopment agency assets have been or will be used to benefit any efforts of the EIFD do not apply. The city clerk is authorized and directed on behalf of the city to provide or make this clarification to the DOF within 10 days of the city council's action to participate in the EIFD pursuant to Government Code Section 53398.68 or the city council's action to form the EIFD pursuant to Government Code Section 53398.69 by delivery of a copy of the appropriate resolution or signing a separate certification if and as required by the DOF. Section 12, as the city did not have a redevelopment agency, EIFD prerequisites regarding state controller reviews of asset transfers and corresponding state controllers' findings do not apply. Section 13, this resolution in no way obligates the PFA to establish any EIFD. Section 14, in any section, subsection, phrase, or clause of this resolution, if any section, subsection, phrase, or clause of this resolution is for any reason found to be invalid, such section, subsection, phrase, or clause shall be severed from and shall not affect the validity of all the remaining portions of the resolution that can be given effect within the severed portion. Section 15, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption. Section 16, the city manager or designee are hereby authorized and directed to take all actions necessary or advisable to give effect to the transactions contemplated by this resolution. Section 17, the city council of the city of Mount Shasta shall certify as to the adoption of this resolution. Passed, approved, and adopted by the city of Mount Shasta, etc.
Second the resolution.
Thank you.
You have to vote again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 4-0. With that,
So
You need it.
That's what clerks do.
you need a glass of water there?
I'm fine.
Okay. So I am seeing that Section 8, Part A, the PFA membership shall be comprised initially of 3 members of City Council appointed by the City Council and 2 public members selected by City Council.
Well, at this time, I would move that the 3 city council members be Mayor Tessa Clore, Mayor Pro Tem John Stackfluff, and Councilmember Jeffrey Collings.
You okay? Okay. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 4-0. And then pertaining to the members of the public, I would recommend that we,
We consider that for
That we-
a future time.
Brett and Tom. Can we take some time to discuss the members of the public, or does that have to be discussed now?
If Joe can weigh in on this, I think we can. I think it would be in our best interest to make sure that we find somebody that understands finance and,
All right, so I'll move to continue the finding and placement of the public participants of the Public Financing Authority.
To a future date and invite, and for the city to invite members of the public who may be interested to
Perhaps at our next
apply or
council
express their
meeting?
interest.
So, so as stated by Councilmember Stearns, additional to what I said, and make this part of the next city council meeting. So is that going to be sufficient time?
yes, it's, Kathy is back in a week and a half, and we need to get a notice out. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that notice out
All
before
right,
then. but-
so strike what I said before, and let's continue this along with comments, along with publicizing the need for participants in the PFA to the the first city council meeting in October.
Great, because we have until February 12th or after for the first public hearing.
Great. Second?
Second on that, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 4-0. Does anyone need a recess? Recess? No? Okay. All right. Let me get back here. We are moving to agenda item number 9, discussion possible action on whether to extend snow removal operations on Mount Shasta Boulevard. Todd or Ken, are you reporting on this?
Well, I'll just tee this up.
Okay.
So we have had some folks that would like to see snow plowing extended down South Mount Shasta Boulevard, where a lot of our retail is moved, since the snow plowing area was established, and completely understand the issues of people's driveways being plowed in and then having to help guests that aren't used to driving in snow pull out of their driveways and other issues. And I'll let Ken speak about this, but based on last winter, if we were to extend where we plow to the center, there are some issues in terms of the amount of traffic, the sight lines, and the fact that we have to not only plow to the center of the street, we then need to move that material to the old mill site, and that would add about $20,000 to the annual budget, not counting the additional staff time to do it. So, and I'm deferring to Ken and his team for, to provide some more information on this, because they're the folks that have to deal with this. But I also want to make sure that we don't get short shrift to the impacts of the businesses at the south end of Mount Shasta.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
You might
If
need
you
to
move
get a
it
little
closer.
closer. Yeah.
How about, ooh. All right, so in my initial staff report, I did point out the two issues of additional cost. If last winter was a typical year, we're adding another $20,000 to plow that section of town to the center on Mount Shasta Boulevard. And also the impact on safety. It's more of a South Mount Shasta Boulevard issue than downtown. Downtown we have lights and stop signs that assist with stopping traffic and getting people to look both ways before they cross. Not so much South Mount Shasta Boulevard. Even that stretch between where Chestnut ties into Mount Shasta Boulevard at the Triangle and Forest Street, we've had a number of accidents, fender benders and whatnot. So those are the two factors I brought into the staff report. And then today, getting ready for this meeting, I actually dug a little deeper. And as I quoted in here, the initial reason behind this area where we plow to the center, it was downtown and mandatory sidewalk snow removal at the same time. And it was aimed toward businesses, and I will acknowledge, and I'll get back to it, that we are spreading. We are moving south with our commercial businesses. But this is initially specified for those businesses that have no off-street parking. So this was a solution to help those businesses survive in the wintertime. You can see where, and it was designated for the business improvement area, which is defined in our ordinance as really, and I should have made copies for everybody, really just the downtown area. And that is also correlates with our current sidewalk, mandatory sidewalk plowing with our uniloader, which I will add at this point is well undercharged. We aren't charging nearly enough for that sidewalk snow removal, but that's another topic. So talked about exceeding the original boundary. It already takes us days, in some cases weeks, to get that snow out of there, and now we're just increasing that by another 30%. We could talk about increasing fees to handle it, where the city would be reimbursed for that extra $20,000. But honestly, We've only got so many people and so much equipment. It's already stretched. That equipment is ancient. To start extending the area where it's going to work, it's just going to be problematic. Also, let's say we do start charging appropriately for that work. Now we're competing with the private sector. I mean, those are things that snow removal is something the private sector could do, possibly even cheaper. Don't know. But it could make that snow disappear a lot faster. When we do it, we're sitting there with one loader and a string of dump trucks. It's a long, time-consuming operation. And then there's the question, if I do have my full crew doing that and I'm increasing the work they're doing, what's not getting done? What about the sewer lines that are plugging up, or the stormwater channels that need attention, so on and so forth? As it is, we pay a lot of overtime, and we'd just be increasing that. While we're looking at the area where we remove snow or plow to the center of the street, one area that I don't know the history. I know how it was formed, and I know how it's designated in the ordinances, but somehow we ended up plowing Chestnut from Alma up to Ivy to the center of the street. That's not in the ordinance, it's not in the plans, it's not in the original idea behind this. So I guess I'm saying, if anything, I'd like to reduce the area where we plowed at the center of the street. That's it.
So your recommendation is?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, do not extend plowing to the center of the street further south than it already is. In fact, I'd like to, in future meetings, possibly look at reducing what we're already plowing to the center of the street. Get back to more of the original. Now, I understand, and it's a valid point. Todd brought it up, and Todd brought it up. We are expanding to the south, and there is a need to keep that open. I guess what I'm saying is, having it done with city crews takes too long and is too expensive. We need to look at alternatives.
I have some thoughts on the subject, but I'll save that for discussion. But I think my question is, have you thought about what the loss of revenue from TOT and sales tax by not allowing our tourists to access hotels and restaurants on the south end would impact the city?
I would say, no, I have not. No, I have not. But I would submit, are we actually losing people? And if we are, is it the city crew that should be doing that snow removal?
Well, my second question would be, why do the restaurants and hotels in the downtown area get precedence and the ones on the south end do not?
Again, we're talking about lots that have like 25-foot frontage, no available on-site parking. That's not the case on South Mount Shasta Boulevard.
Any other questions? All right, we will open up to public comment. Come on down, Mr. Anthus.
Hello. Council, gentlemen, thank you for having me here. And we own Strawberry Valley Inn, Shasta Inn, and Harvest Restaurant. And along with the other business owners down there, we disagree. I think this general plan was set up a long time ago. We plow everything to the center of Mount Shasta until we actually get to what I consider the heart, the tourism, which is the hospitality. Without hospitality, no one's coming to Mount Shasta except for I-5 people that drop in. So our hotels are buried. And this is all winter long. It's every hour, the plow comes by, blocks the driveway. Nothing against Bay Area people. Most of them have two-wheel drive vehicles. They're halfway out in the intersection. That is a safety issue. I'm pulling them out all day long from Dahlia at Casa Ramos up to Lily's. It's a safety issue. In regards to not having stoplights, I think it's more of a safety issue being wide open and snowy down there, because they do come in town hot, and it's just like a highway. There's nothing telling them, hey, these are icy roads or anything like that. I think once you get in town, you see the berms up, people slow down. They know there's a row of cars here, there's a berm of snow, I'm not gonna do 45 miles per hour. South Mount Shasta Boulevard, they don't slow down because there's nothing telling them other than common sense, and there's a lack of when it comes to drivers from other areas that aren't used to the snow. So I do believe it's a huge safety issue. I think it certainly impacts business. I know it impacts business because I'm a hotelier. I have people stay with us, and I can tell you right now, a high percentage of them won't be back to Mount Shasta because of the plowing situation. If you can't get out to the ski park first thing in the morning and you get up there by 9 o'clock when we're finally done plowing roads and you're turned away, you're not going to Mount Shasta, you're going to Bachelor, guaranteed. We've seen it time and time again. I had this argument about the TOT tax. We're driving people away from Mount Shasta. The whole idea behind hospitality is to support other businesses, retail and restaurants, get them here, house them, and get them downtown. When we're blocked in the way we're being blocked in every hour, it's not happening. You know, we have a restaurant in-house, which is nice, but they want to go to town. They want to see it. The sidewalks, you know, that's a whole different situation. All I want is a safe avenue, whether they have to take a right turn or left turn, for our patrons to be able to get out on South Mount Shasta Boulevard without getting stuck in a pile of snow. And I can't sit there all day long. I do. I mean, right now I'm out there, you know, as soon as the plow comes by, I go back out and clear it for them so they can get out. Am I on a time limit? Oh, shoot. I wish I would have known that. I would hit the real key topics. One key topic I want to touch on.
Have Brett continue.
Well, she doesn't know this one. One key topic. I have 12 seconds, it looks like, or I'm over.
No, you're over.
Okay.
Sorry, Todd.
Okay, come on. The TOT, we just increased. I'm going to contribute an extra, on my properties, an additional $25,000 a year now is going to the general fund with that 2%. So if we're at 20,000, you know, we're getting a big chunk to help out.
Through the chair.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Todd? Before you leave the podium, DEAC, the Downtown Enhancement Advisory Committee, has discussed for perhaps the last 3 years, 2 or 3 years, the possibility and advantages of extending the business district southward. Is that something that you might be favorable
I think it
to?
should be.
And if so, you might work with DEAC to expand the district, which might create increased opportunities for South Mount Shasta Boulevard.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Who's the current chair of DEAC?
Huh?
Who's the current chair?
Ashley Haggie.
Do you know
Oh,
Ashley?
I know
You know
Ashley.
Ashley? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what DEAC is, but
Well, DEAC is going to consider expanding.
They've talked about it, and basically, the downtown district acts like a bid, and it collects funds for everything from, facade improvements to, art installations, all kinds of different types of improvements, but it also helps with parking and offsetting other costs that the city endures. So it may be worth your while to talk to the DEAC. If we were to extend the district, the kind of fees that we generate downtown, it would have to be consistent in South Mount Shasta Boulevard. It would not fully offset our costs, but it would help.
okay. Well, I'll talk to Ashley. It's here all the time. Thanks.
Thank you. Brett?
Well, I want to, first of all, thank you for all your contribution. Ken, for your work that you're doing. Mayor, all the work you're doing. I will challenge you, Ken, on this. Have you ever come into Mount Shasta at night on the south end of Mount Shasta and see how many cars are parked on the street? Not everybody has off-street parking, because I own a restaurant and I have no off-street parking. Lily's has a tiny pad in the back. Seven Sons has no parking, and when we pile all that snow, we come through, and then they do a second plow, they never get it to the curb. so people can't park. And Todd is the one going up and plowing these merchants out so they can have on-street parking. And that's detrimental. It's detrimental to the community. I also know that financially things are really tight. So I don't know that maybe putting the snow to the center is the answer, but somehow clearing it so that it's actually passable and walkable for the people visiting us would be, I think, a tremendous help. It's basically impassable all morning. I mean, there's been times when Casa Ramos can't even open because there's no place to park. Seven Suns, it could be a day or two. So I know we had a tremendous winter. It's not customary, but I'll tell you, there are tons of people parking on that street all the time. So it's a concern, and I hope you can somehow take it consideration. I know 20,000 is a lot of money, but to me, if we're not supposed to be doing Chestnut, then we should probably make it be consistent for everyone, not to take away from the Chestnut people, because I work and on my business is on Chestnut Street, John's is on Chestnut Street. But I think we need to have a different game plan for the way that we're moving this snow, maybe. So, just my thoughts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brett. Anyone else wish to come up and speak? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Dalia, and I work at Casa Ramos. And I got some information about the meeting today by Todd and family. And we really appreciate his work too, because without him, we don't have business too on the snow time, especially when we have these really bad winters and all the storms and everything. Even our employees, they cannot come because they don't have any space or parking to park, because we want our customers to have a space too. So without him, we don't open the restaurant. So I've been seeing the way that it's been changing, and I see the difference between South Mount Shasta Boulevard, because we are there too. And it is a lot of difference when you go downtown and see the difference, like they're clean and we don't. Another thing is, like, I've been seeing like accidents too. People go, cars, like a small cars, believe me, like they're racing, going so fast. And you have your car, you have to park your car, whatever, you have a little bit of space in there too, thinking they're gonna hit, my car or somebody else's car. So without him, we are really tight. So he really helped us a lot. But, if you guys can contribute it more and tries to help that street actually, because like we don't have any stops. They go like, I will say like on the winters, really bad winters, like maybe over 40 or 50 miles per hour. Like right now, we have, I don't know what's going on the freeway, but we have a big loads trucks, really big ones. And we have the patio open. I go over there and I can feel it. And I see this boom, really big trucks going like over the limit. And I'm thinking, what's going to happen with someone on the Sunset when they have a coffee shop and people, they just walking. So for us, it's really concerning. And, I'm here just to see if something else can come out and see if we see any change this year. We hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Come on up.
Hi there. My name is Austin. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm with Siskiyou Humane Society. I may be a little bit off topic because we are talking about South Mount Shasta Boulevard, but I do want to bring up some snow-related issues on the north side as well. Ken and I have talked about this in the past, but I thought I'd bring this to City Council and ask. First, I also want to bring up part of our MOU that we have with the City Police, MSPD. Chapter 2, Section 2 says, provide accessible space to the city to deliver seized animals to the shelter during hours when the shelter is closed. That being said, when the snow is as bad as it was last year, we were struggling even to find private contractors to clear ample space for the police department to bring animals that were seized or otherwise impounded. Sorry if I'm completely off topic here, because I realize that we're talking about South Mount Shasta Boulevard. But I just wanted to bring this to the table, and I realize that funding is, with everybody, is a big issue. Just wanted to put that in your ears.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, if you guys are able to bring this up in a different meeting, or if this is something that can be included in this, I'd be happy to speak more about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this topic? Anyone online?
No one online.
All right, we will close public comment, bring it back for council discussion. I just wanted to start by saying that we are a ski snow resort tourist town. That is how we survive in the winter. We need to figure out a compromise or a way to let tourists come here, enjoy their stay, and spend money at our restaurants, hotels, retail, and keep them downtown and let them go to the ski park.
Through the chair?
Yes.
All right, so as someone who drives through this snow 3 times a week, every week through the winter, and this past one was very rough, what runs through my mind is we need to develop, and it certainly will cost more, a better program to not only pick up the snow, the center divide snow on Main Street, but to handle all the snow, such as on South Shasta Boulevard, that's on the shoulders. Whether it's a matter of putting in the center and picking it up, that might be the solution, maybe it's not. To me, the big issue here is how well or not well are we handling our snow removal in general. North side of town, south side of town, downtown. I know it's a difficult task for Public Works. Sounds like they probably don't have the machinery, probably don't have the staff for winters like we just had to do it in a expeditious manner. So it seems to me twofold solution. One, to study what it is that we can do to improve the quickness with which we pick up the snow. Whatever techniques are appropriate might be different in different areas of town. But secondly, it's definitely going to cost more than we're spending now. And put a number on this. Whether it's a matter of buying more equipment, leasing more equipment, which would be less stressful on our budget if we spread the payments out over time, and or hiring third parties. In all cases, this is going to cost more money. But I think that our guest speakers that came up have a good point, as does the mayor. If we're going to be a tourist town that exists in the winter, we have to help these businesses with the general activity level that we hope that generally is tied in with the ski park. If we're not cooperating with our potential guests and making it difficult to just be here and get around, that's not helping us. So we're basically admitting we're just a tourist town for the summer. And I think that's a bad attitude, given the potential that this ski park has, and the fact that this ski park ownership has invested quite a bit of money, millions, into improving that park, and may, based on rumors I'm hearing, invest even more. So it would be good if we can get the guests that want to go to it feeling good about being in Mount Shasta as the place to stay. That's my suggestion. I don't think we should drop this. Maybe we should vote on continuing with the issue, but I do think it's worthy of trying to make improvements.
Yeah, I don't see us acting on anything tonight, but some ideas have come forward. I think having start to do brainstorming, staff has some limitations. There may be other opportunities. There may be partnering with the ski park. There may be expanding the downtown business district. It may be creating a separate business improvement district for South or commercial association. There could be any number of ideas. It might include picking up some new equipment, new types of equipment, or doing other types of work with the contractors. I think it's something that ought to be addressed, and would encourage staff and the businesses to get together. And oftentimes when many heads come together, good results occur.
So my turn for my 2 cents on the snow removal. So as far as the berm, center berm on South Mount Shasta Boulevard, I do not see an issue with that. They've already got an advantage to a berm in the middle of the street compared to what I see on Chestnut Street with the berm, is they have parallel parking, and they don't have all the idiots that park at an angle blocking the berm and everything down to 5-6 feet. The cars can't get around, all that kind of stuff. So it stays with the Mount Shasta Boulevard theme of the parallel parking, which will work out well. But I think something we need to do for snow removal, if we're going to be this tourist town, and I've said this a lot in my bar to people, is when it's dumping snow on the weekends, can we just get one truck to go around and hit the arteries? Hit Main Street, hit Lake Street, hit Chestnut. If you got time, hit some residential areas, maybe Rockefeller down, just some of those, Everett Memorial. Just so that some of the weekends when we get heavy snow, you don't have the washboard effect where you're doing 10 miles an hour as you go down Main Street like this. All right, it's annoying as hell. I'm sorry. And that's one of the things I think we need to do. I don't care about the cost. If we're charging, like Todd said, if we're going to raise our TOT, what's 20 grand? Just to plow the streets out so people can get around and not bitch about it. That's my main concern, is just on these, just when we get storms on the weekend, instead of worrying about overtime, just throw 2 guys in the truck and hit the arteries. That's my solution to it. But I'm all in favor of just continuing the berm. They shouldn't have to be the ones that, everybody else gets it to the center and then, screw you guys, here you go. That kind of feeling. So.
If I may, one more thing. I don't know how much it costs. I know that in Tahoe, they have a machine that picks up the center snow very quickly and dumps it into the truck as they both go along side by side. You've probably seen that. I don't know if Mount Shasta could afford something like that or not. Maybe with the additional TOT. But it's all part of brainstorming. It's not something we're going to.
We can't afford cash-wise. Well, we could, but there would be less reserve. It's a payment. You have to decide if you're going to lease one of these things.
I think the appropriate move right now would, I don't know if this is motion appropriate, but to request that staff take some time to come up with some solutions and bring it to council as soon as everyone can, so that we can have an answer before the snow falls.
Yeah, and let me add, don't be shy about the cost. If it's going to cost, well, I think it's going to cost more than $20,000, to be honest. If it's going to cost $50,000, machines and labor, or third party, and the problem with third parties, from what I can tell, is they're not always ready to go. From what my experience is, I actually know some of the guys that do this, and they can't really. There's timing issues. They can't just get on the snow like we would want to. They can eventually get around to it, but yeah, if it's going to cost more than 20, let's just get the numbers on the table to improve the quickness with which, we do eventually get it all removed. We're talking about quickness, is it getting it removed fast like they do in Tahoe or Mammoth Lakes. And Mammoth Lakes is not twice our size, but they move snow because they want to be the tourist town that we hope to be.
Is the general consensus sufficient, or do you need a motion for this?
May I ask for a little more direction?
All right, so I'll move to give staff direction in 2 ways. Develop plans that, whether it's just slight changes to the current way we remove snow or substantial changes. And then, secondly, let us know the costs of doing that, all with a mind to removing snow with whatever techniques as quickly as possible.
Would you
To
willing
include
be,
South Mount Shasta Boulevard.
would you be willing to?
This would be citywide, by the way. I'm
Would-
asking myself. Yeah,
would you-
again, because we don't want to discriminate.
Right.
Would you be willing to entertain an amendment to that motion that staff brainstorm with the interested parties? It could be private contractors, it could be South County businesses, it
Looks
could
like-
be the ski park.
Looks like that would be a good
Bring
idea.
in all the,
Yeah.
So my motion amended,
Second.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes 4-0. Thank you, guys. All right. That'd be something. All right, agenda item number 10, discussion possible action, consideration of an ordinance establishing a minimum floor price law, MFPL, to help decrease tobacco use. Todd, do you want to catch us up from last time?
Sure. At the August 28th meeting, we discussed, actually second time around, discussed the possibility of adopting a model ordinance that was put together to do a number of things, including put a floor on the cost of tobacco products as a way to divert youth from smoking. And there were a whole host of other things that it proposed as well. And at the August 28th meeting, it was clear from council, the direction was we don't want to be interfering with, the prices set with retailers, but there were certain aspects of this model ordinance that we may want to consider, including things like, not using coupons or not allowing flavored tobacco and what else? And not providing free samples. And there were a couple other things in there that were pretty interesting and seemed like they were fairly easy to implement on their own. So, the chief has done some research on this, so I'll let him kind of take this.
Thank you.
So, code enforcement reached out to his counterparts around the state, and specifically with Sacramento City. We surveyed 14 different municipalities throughout the state that had adopted similar regulations. And what we found is most of it was targeted towards the flavored tobacco, typically giving a grace period between 7 months and 2 years for the businesses to be able to get rid of their standing inventory. Some of the other things we found is that most of the municipalities, which included Yolo County, San Francisco City, and County, Oakland, Berkeley, and more, they didn't really set prices. What they did is they said, this is your business license if you want to sell it. They established a price for the license. They, kind of like what we do with our cannabis now, they established to where you had to do, this was the checklist you had to do. Some of the interesting things we found was some of the cities had, like Sacramento, has a 1,000 foot limit. So you can't be a tobacco retailer within 1,000 feet of another tobacco retailer. That probably won't work in Mount Shasta because we're small, but interesting things like that. There's been a question about who's going to enforce this and what's the compliance, and what I found with the Sacramento specifically is it's real similar to our system, where we could just tie this into our administrative fees for non-compliance. If a business is selling underage minors or is not complying with the business regulations or something like that, it would fall under our administrative citations, where we could use that fee schedule to keep them up. So those are some of the big things. Again, we couldn't find where people were actually setting the prices. It was, this is a business, you had to get a special business license that would address many of the things that council had talked about, where no tobacco at a pharmacy, for example, or no flavored tobacco, or you had to be 21. And again, is from law enforcement, it's really not an issue of having to do undercover operations. Some of the examples we've got of checklists of what other municipalities are doing as far as the code compliance checklist would be a lot along the lines of what we're already doing with the Prop 64 marijuana compliance checklist. So that's what we found.
Thank you. Since you've done a lot of the research and some of the burden will land within your department, what parts of this ordinance would you recommend that the city moves forward with, if any?
So looking at what's presented in the agenda tonight, really, if council wanted to proceed with this, it would be, one of the things I forgot to mention was they had a certain percentage, they could only have so much square footage dedicated to tobacco products based on the square footage of the facility. I think I'm not comfortable with, as council is, of setting prices for them. However, all the other things as far as no selling to minors, no flavored products, a lot of these are state laws anyhow. Compliance checks, having the business license and having to pay a fee for that license. We have a different fee for marijuana businesses. So those would be some things that I would look at, and it would be council's direction of what they really like, and we could bring something back.
So here's what I'd say. All flavored tobacco products, including menthol, prohibited for sale.
Which is already a state law, correct?
What's that?
It's already a state law.
Yeah, I believe some
Yeah.
menthol cigarettes are
Yeah.
now state law, you can't sell them.
You can't. Okay, I didn't know that. All right. On-site sales with final customer, no deliveries, which I don't think we do anyway, but if we did, stop it. No coupons or discounts honored. No free samples or promotions. Selling tobacco products without a license shall result in tiered penalties, including fines and licenses and suspensions. License revoked after a minimum number of violations in a defined period. Enforcement conducted by a civil, and at least an annual underage decoy operation.
And one other thing I would add would be the maximum point of sale, no more than 20 packs of cigarettes, so no more than a carton of cigarettes per customer, and no more than 6 cigars at a time per customer. So it would establish that you couldn't sell more than 1 carton to a customer at a time.
And if I may, at the last meeting, there were questions about not selling single cigars or single cigarettes. So
Lucy's, as the term goes. Huh? Lucy's, as the term goes, yeah.
Okay.
But I believe there's actually some language regarding that in the Sacramento policy.
Okay. Well, I think most of us, or maybe all of us, were generally receptive to the idea, except for setting the minimum pricing. And one of the questions that we had previously was, well, would we be the first to adopt this? Has anybody else adopted it, or are we a test case? And you've answered that question. Thank you for your research.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions before we open up? No? All right, come on up. We'll open up for public comment.
So first, I do want to pass around, thank you for your research, really, really well done. But I do have one. So the minimum floor price and plan isn't as popular in the tobacco retail license. I want to say I found like 5 or 6 municipalities in the state of California that are doing that within their tobacco retail license. But if you'd like to see an example of that, this is from Sebastopol, California. I only printed out the sections that are related to this because it has all the whereas and all that I left out because it's the same as what I already gave you in that like 20-page document. So just a couple things that I was hoping to offer some education on. I believe I watched the last meeting recording, and there was, the state should do this. So I did want to let you know, as you mentioned, there is already a flavor ban, so that is something that is already in place in the state of California. And then I think someone said, retailers the state should enact a policy requiring retailers to have a license, just like we do with alcohol, which is true. That already exists, the Cigarette and Tobacco Licensing Act of 2003. And then the minimum price in packaging, the point of that is to keep from gouging prices, and higher prices are proven to help people quit and reduce youth access to tobacco. And so in Prop 2016, Prop 56 was put into place, which is an increased price of tobacco by increasing the tax. And so that $2 increase is what goes into our state tax funding, and they fund all kinds of programs like Medi-Cal, things like that, with that money. And so the retailers don't see any of that. The reason that the minimum price and packaging, the information behind it is that increasing that price and then keeping the retailers from gouging the prices. And like you mentioned, selling those single cigars for like $1 a piece. They previously were flavored. And really accessible. But also the tobacco retail license gives local control. It gives the city council the ability to control what is being sold. These policies that the state has put into place, as far as I can see from the Federal Drug Administration, they have never been, no compliance checks are on record. So they have never held our retailers in Siskiyou County, particularly Mount Shasta, I checked, they have never held them accountable for selling to minors, selling illegal products. So a tobacco retail license, one of the benefits is that it gives you those funds and the ability to make sure that retailers are not selling to young people and that they are selling products that are legal and pricing them properly. The last thing I just wanted to say is that it really takes a village to help our young people. Parents can educate their kids all they want, but they are up against a multi-billion-dollar industry that is finding really unique ways to push these products. And then lastly, 216 signatures from Mount Shasta people that say, I support tobacco retail policies to protect youth from harmful tobacco and nicotine products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment online?
None.
Okay. And no more from the audience? All right, we'll close public comment, bring it back to council.
I see the staff recommends that we authorize staff to, or direct staff to bring back a proposed ordinance, and I would be supportive of that.
I agree. Any other feedback?
Not interested.
Not interested? John?
It sounds like you can get the signatures to put this on the ballot. So we've got one in March and got one in November. So we'll let the public decide. That's kind of my feeling on it, but I'm not interested.
I move that because there's only 4 council members here tonight, I would move that we continue this to a future date, which we can do. I know in the past that's what the mayor has recommended doing when there's been only 4.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not completely sold on this idea. I do like the no coupons thing, but if staff is interested in wanting to move forward, then that does create some clarification for my hesitancy. So I will move to postpone this to a future council meeting. Do we need a vote?
No, I think that the mayor and city manager have the authority under our existing rules to put anything on the agenda that either the mayor or the city manager chooses to do. So it can be continued to a future time. It doesn't require a vote.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I lost my motion here, but we are Agenda item 11, any outside meetings to report on?
None.
Okay. Can I see your last page? Thank you. All right. And agenda item number 12, future agenda items and meetings appearing on the agenda within 60 to 90 days. A, emergency shelter ordinance 925-23. B, discussion possible action, McLeod Avenue parking prohibition to be determined. C, discussion possible action regarding the active transportation committee to be determined. D, approval of funds to complete a survey of Washington Avenue to be determined. E, amendment of parklet ordinance to be determined. Future agenda items over 90 days. F, discussion possible action, review of Chapter 13.95, extraction, exportation of groundwater from the city of Mount Shasta. Any other items?
So PFA finalization for the EIFD, that's planned, so I don't know, do you want to make it formal for October, first meeting in October?
Yeah. Do
Okay.
you have that, Todd? Okay.
And then a staff, how shall we call it, staffed recommendation for improved snow plowing. Maybe that would be by the second meeting in November, second meeting in October, or first meeting in November.
Within the next 90 days, anyway.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
in order to make things happen.
I would say no later than the first meeting in November.
It really depends upon staff timing and being able to get all the interested parties together and
Now, that's, to be determined if need be.
right.
Second meeting
So-
in October, you think?
Yes. We could certainly be ready with an in-house analysis by then. If we bring in all these different partners.
It's easier when you speak into the mic. Sorry, Ken.
We could certainly have an in-house analysis, cost analysis, and several recommendations. One would be at the existing level of service, and then I'd have at least one, if not two more, at an improved level of service. Because I fully acknowledge snow removal is an issue down there.
Well,
My statements were based on the fact of the city trying to do it with their existing funding level. Now,
Right.
if we can look at alternatives without additional funding, then we can be very creative.
well, yeah, bring in additional stakeholders or bring the other stakeholders together and see what they might bring to the table for a solution.
All right? Yeah, second meeting of October at this point should work. Second meeting of October should work.
Okay.
Any others?
There was a discussion about, so I would like to propose that we put on agenda discussion and possible action regarding elimination of time-limited parking throughout Mount Shasta.
I think based on what my opinion is that we should wait and see where the one-way streets go. That's my opinion.
Well, it'd be good to...
Frankly, my position is we're not going to enforce any of this stuff. Yeah. But we do have this large potential project, and it's becoming somewhat clear what direction we're headed in.
We ought to get a pulse of the community.
As far as what? The one-way streets or the parking?
The time limit parking, because that may assist us in planning or determining the one-way streets
I
of that
disagree.
issue. That's my thinking, and so I'm proposing it. I don't know if there is a
I understand.
second person that
I'm just
that
saying I
is willing-
disagree.
Well, I hear you disagree. Is there a second to putting that on a future agenda?
No, I'll say we hold off on it for now.
Any other items to add? One recommendation I would like is when Muriel brings the budgeted information for review, or the actual, excuse me, that she make a brief announcement or overview of her analysis of the figures, so that we have more of a discussion point during staff comments.
Oh, yeah. So that's an agenda item. We need the final numbers on fiscal '23. This is now September 11th, and we don't have those. So maybe first week of October, first
Yeah.
meeting of October. That should be final by then.
All right, if there's nothing further, we will adjourn.